So, let me tell you a story. It's about two friends, known as Badger and Tracker, who back in the 1970s decided to take on one of the toughest trails on the planet, the Kokoda Track. And here's the kicker. They did it with pretty much no gear, zero training, and a map that was basically just a doodle on a piece of paper. This is a wild one. Let's just start with this photo because it says so much. This is Badger at Kokoda Gap, about 5 days into the trek. You can just feel the exhaustion, right? But there's also this incredible look of achievement on his face. This one picture just perfectly captures the loneliness and the massive scale of what they were doing.
And this quote from Badger, man, this says it all. This wasn't some epic, well-planned expedition, not at all. It was an escape. They weren't running towards the trail, they were running away from the city, and this was their only way out.
Okay, Section 1. An unlikely adventure. Let's dig into how this whole crazy thing even started. Because really, it was just a spur-of-the-moment decision. So their journey kicks off with just absolute chaos. Tracker misses the connecting flight in Brisbane. The plane's engines are literally already roaring, and suddenly he comes tearing through security, backpack clanging with pots and pans with security guards chasing him. Of course, they both get booted off the flight and end up spending the next 12 hours getting completely hammered in the airport bar. What a start.
When they finally get to Port Moresby, the vibe is just awful. They were totally disgusted. The expat culture they ran into was just toxic. They heard people calling the locals horrible names like rock apes, and even saying that you had to get violent to get their attention. It was this repulsive attitude that just cemented it for them. They had to get out, and the jungle looked a whole lot better than the city.
Section 2. The hand-drawn map. So their guide for this 96-kilometer trek through the jungle? This. A sketch from a patrol officer who, let's just say, was not optimistic about their chances. Now, to give you an idea of what that little hand-drawn map was supposed to cover, here's the real deal. See, the Kokoda Track doesn't really care about geography. It doesn't wind through valleys or follow easy paths. Nope. It just plows north, south, straight up and over these massive mountain ridges that run east-west. It's brutal.
So the patrol officer who drew them the map, he wasn't exactly filling them with confidence, you know? He points out his office window to these super steep hills and says, yeah, I ran up and down those for 6 months just to get ready. And Badger and Tracker, their response was basically, nothing like on-the-job training.
You really got to understand, this trail just breaks all the rules of a normal hike. Think about a regular trail. It tries to find the easiest way. Now throw all of that out the window. Kokoda is just relentless. 3,000 feet up, 3,000 feet down, every single day, with these insane river crossings thrown in just for fun. It was the fastest route, sure, but that also made it the most punishing.
And this is what that reality looks like on the ground. Here's Tracker trying to make his way across one of who knows how many creeks. No bridges, no signs, no help, just you, the rushing water, and the constant pouring rain. This was their life from the second they stepped onto the trail.
Section 3. Trial by kunai grass. So, things were tough, but now they're about to get really, really bad. All thanks to one tiny, innocent-looking note on their map. This was it. This was the note. After climbing down a 3,000-foot ridge, the map just casually says, you go through a bit of kunai grass here. A bit? That little phrase was hiding an absolute nightmare. So that bit of kunai grass? 4 hours. 4 hours of hell. They were pushing through 6-foot-tall grass with edges like razor blades, climbing up a brutally steep hill in the blazing tropical sun with one water bottle between them. One. By the time they finally got through it, they were literally delirious. They were dangerously dehydrated. Badger's feet were just a pulp of blisters. They stumbled to the first river they could find and just collapsed, completely and utterly broken. This was rock bottom. This was that moment where you genuinely think we've made a terrible, maybe even fatal mistake. Section 4. Christmas on the trail. And right when they hit that absolute low, when they thought it was all over, their journey was completely changed by the incredible kindness of the people who actually live along the trail. They found sanctuary in these amazing villages, like Kagi, just tucked away in the mountains. And they learned really fast that offering money was actually an insult here. So instead, they traded the only things they had of value. Tobacco for the men and balloons for the kids. And in return, they got food and a safe place to sleep. And get this, they ended up spending Christmas Day in one of the villages. Their big Christmas feast was sweet potato and corn.
And that night, by candlelight, they sang Christmas carols with the villagers, who somehow knew all the words. They saw a totally different way of life, a community where a 10-year-old girl could stand up in a meeting and be listened to with total respect. It just blew them away.
And then, after 5 days of just pure hell, they made it. They reached Kokoda Gap. And this was the payoff. From over 7,000 feet up, they could look all the way back to the south coast, back towards Port Moresby. After everything they had been through, just look at that. That's what they earned.
Section 5. The MV Laruna. So you'd think the hard part's over, right? The trek is done? Nope, the adventure is far from finished. Getting home was going to be its own epic story.
So they hitched a ride to the coast and found their ticket home. This thing, the MV Laruna, an old, rusty cargo boat. And its captain? A character you could never make up, the legendary Bill effing Brown.
This just perfectly sums up the whole absurd situation. When they first ask Captain Brown for a ride, he just tells them to F off. But then a massive storm hits, and they see their chance. They start helping load these heavy, soaking wet bales of rubber onto the boat. They worked like crazy for 3 hours, and only then did Bill just kind of grunt, you might as well grab your gear and come on board.
And for 2 days on this boat, nothing. Captain Brown doesn't give them a scrap of food. They're starving. Finally, they get permission to use the kitchen. With a few eggs, onions, tomatoes, and curry powder, they make a simple curried egg omelet on rice. And Badger says, to this day, it was the best meal he has ever eaten in his entire life.
So we're going to end on this thought from Badger himself. After telling this story, the grueling trek, the near-death moments, the kindness, the chaos, he asks this question. It takes this insane personal adventure and turns it into a bigger idea about the value of effort. And after hearing their story, you kind of have to agree, don't you?